How McLaren just ended Ricciardo's F1 career. Daniel Ricciardo's career was always doomed to end tragically, and it looks like it's finally happening. Daniel Ricciardo hasn't had the ideal start to the 2022 Formula One season. We could go into detail about how he was outclassed by Lando Norris in the same car, but that's old news. The Australian driver was anticipated to be the guiding light at McLaren when he first joined the squad in 2021, and he was signed on for a very hefty contract. Hey F1 enthusiasts, welcome back to Racing Insights. Today's video is going to be really informative, so make sure you watch the video till the end. Without any further ado, let's begin. Unfortunately, Ricciardo has had a snowball effect of one thing going wrong after another the previous 18 months. We now have him in a scenario where he may be forced to leave the team early, as both the driver and the team appear to have run out of patience. Since signing on to drive for Red Bull in 2014, the Australian's career has been destined for tragedy. That dreadful ending could eventually come to pass in 2022. So what brought the story here? To understand how it happened, we need to look back at Daniel Ricciardo's F1 history. It all started in 2011 when he was promoted to Toro Rosso after spending half a season in the pits with HRT. Daniel Ricciardo was paired with Jean-Eric Vergne, another talented Red Bull Junior driver at Toro Rosso. For 2 years, the two were at odds, but by the end of the second season, it was evident that Ricciardo was the superior driver. As a result, when Mark Webber retired at the end of the 2013 Formula One season, his fellow Australian was called to drive for Red Bull. Red Bull Inc. 2014 to 2018. Daniel Ricciardo performed the unimaginable in his rookie season with Red Bull in 2014, handily defeating reigning four-time champion Sebastian Vettel. Ricciardo had the finest performance of anyone on the grid in 2014, according to many pundits and fans. He won 3 races, trailing just the 2 Mercedes drivers. With Vettel electing to join Ferrari and emulate his idol Michael Schumacher, Ricciardo took over as team captain at Red Bull. However, Red Bull's performance dropped in 2015 as both Williams and Ferrari appeared to have an advantage. Ricciardo gave it his all and was largely regarded as one of the greatest drivers on the field. Max Verstappen made his debut for Red Bull in 2016, winning his first race in Barcelona. Since then, Red Bull has been gradually but surely turning toward him. Ricciardo had the upper hand in 2016, and things were close in 2017. But that all changed in 2018 when a pretty violent collision between the two in Baku saw them both facing criticism from the team rather than just Verstappen, who was significantly more aggressive than Ricciardo. Renault 2019 to 2020. Daniel Ricciardo made a surprise switch to Renault at the end of the 2018 F1 season in order to build a squad around him and accomplish something similar to what Lewis Hamilton had done so well at Mercedes. After looking at the team's growth trajectory and evidently not being satisfied with what he saw at Renault in a year, Ricciardo made the jump to McLaren only a year later. Ricciardo's time with the French team was brief. He was the team's first podium finisher, finishing ahead of Esteban Ocon and Nico Hülkenberg. His transfer to McLaren seemed justified, as the Woking-based team was improving in all areas. It finished third in the championship at the end of the 2020 F1 season, and it appeared that this was the natural next step for the Australian. McLaren 2021 to present. This leads us to Daniel Ricciardo's time at McLaren. Ricciardo's time on the British team began awkwardly since he was unable to adapt his driving style to the car. Meanwhile, his colleague Lando Norris outscored him for the majority of the season, with the exception of a few cases here and there, one of which was the Italian Grand Prix, which Ricciardo won. The 2021 season was mostly written off because it was considered that the car under Ricciardo was not to his liking. The 2022 Formula One season was expected to see the comeback of Daniel Ricciardo. He was supposed to be back to his best, driving fast and consistently, and being one of the best on the grid. Unfortunately, the season has not gone as planned, since Norris's advantages gap from the previous season remains. To add salt to the wound, McLaren manager Zak Brown has openly stated that Ricciardo's performances since joining the team have not satisfied either the team's or the driver's standards. As a result, Ricciardo appeared nervous about everything and was not his typical self throughout the Monaco Grand Prix weekend. To be completely honest, this could be the point at which the Ricciardo-McLaren marriage ends. Why was it always going to end tragically? This takes us to the critical point we've been attempting to make. Every driver believes he is a world champion until he encounters a driver who is as good as or better than him. In the case of Daniel Ricciardo, his 2014 race against Sebastian Vettel was perhaps not the best thing that could have occurred to him. Before that season, Ricciardo was regarded as a good future, a driver who would excel in the sport given the qualities he possessed. The view completely shifted after 2014. Ricciardo was now the Red Bull team leader. He was regarded as one of the best drivers on the field, alongside Lewis Hamilton, Fernando Alonso, and Sebastian Vettel, the guy he defeated earlier. So, did he truly compete with the top drivers on the grid? Or was it a case of Ricciardo being Vettel's teammate during a season in which the latter was not just dissatisfied with the new regulations, as he publicly confessed at the time, but also unmotivated by the prospect of driving for Red Bull? What do you guys think? Please let us know in the comments section below. While Vettel's performance suffered significantly, Ricciardo, who was already a superb driver in his own right, was made to seem even better in this situation. When Daniel Ricciardo paired up with Max Verstappen, the first true sign that he was not at the level of a top driver became clear. The Dutch driver, who was still a teen at the time, was rough around the edges. Overall, Ricciardo was the more spectacular of the two in 2016 and 2017. Even during these two seasons, Verstappen would put everything together and leave Ricciardo in the dust. This happened at the 2016 Brazilian Grand Prix, when Max Verstappen basically educated everyone on the grid, or even in Malaysia in 2017, when he won the race, but Ricciardo finished about 22 seconds behind. Verstappen had Ricciardo figured out by the 2018 season, easily defeating him. After a brief stay at Renault, where he competed against and beat Nico Hülkenberg and Esteban Ocon, it was his best move to McLaren that resulted in a terrible reality. The realization is not that Daniel Ricciardo is a lousy Formula One driver. He can compete with the greatest on the grid, but he cannot be a world champion. In Formula One, there are only a few teams with which you may compete and win the championship. The problem is that all these teams are hunting for true elite talent, like Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, Lando Norris, or George Russell. Daniel Ricciardo, on the other hand, is not. He's a fantastic F1 driver who deserves to be on the grid, but anytime he competes with the best, he loses a tenth or two. Having said that, it does not follow that his problems versus Norris reflect his current position on the F1 grid. Absolutely not. The Norris dilemma is more related to the overall McLaren design philosophy, which hasn't worked with Ricciardo. Ricciardo might fare considerably better versus Norris in a different environment, as he did at Monza last season. What does the future hold for Daniel Ricciardo? Unlike some commentators, we do not believe Daniel Ricciardo has completely lost his competitiveness, nor does it appear that he's incapable of doing well in an F1 car. He cannot, however, do so at McLaren. That marriage has reached its end, and by the end of the season, we may see the two entities split ways for the better. For Daniel Ricciardo, a spot at Alfa Romeo or Aston Martin could become available for next season if he's ready to accept it. He's far from a bygone era at his age. He's still a capable driver who's extremely excellent and should produce good results. But that's about it, and there's no way to get to the front of the pack right now. More importantly, it appears that Daniel Ricciardo has finally reached his F1 ceiling. That limit is only one level lower than the greatest drivers on the circuit. Alright guys, that's pretty much it for this video. If you liked it, please make sure you give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to smash that subscribe button and hit the bell icon to get the latest updates. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you all in the next video.